everyone in the world, because
study on
almost everyone in
salt.
the world eats salt, and almost everyone in the world eats more salt than they should.
What is the attributable risk of salt, in other words, for premature death? I mean, how much can we blame salt for things?
So it depends a little bit on what you believe, and there has been an element of belief in this, unfortunately. But it's certainly millions of premature deaths each year. Whether it's
Millions.
1, 2, 3, 4, there remains some debate about.
So tell me about this study and what you did.
So what we did was we wanted to try and answer the question once and for all. If we reduce the amount of salt that people ate, could we reduce clinical events? Because we knew that we could reduce blood pressure before this, but we didn't know whether we could prevent strokes, heart attacks, and the like. So what we did was we took 21,000
Sorry,
people.
just to explain, there's been a debate around this, is if you reduce your blood pressure by reducing your salt, some people have alleged you don't get the benefit in terms of heart attack and stroke reduction, because there's something different about that blood pressure reduction compared to doing it with drugs or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Based on some fairly weak epidemiology, it has to be said,
Absolutely.
but a debate nonetheless.
Right.
So to try and answer it, we took 21,000 people from 600 villages in rural China. We went to rural China because it's relatively easy to replace the salt in rural Chinese diet. We gave half of the people a salt substitute, which comprised 75% sodium chloride, so still 75% regular salt,
Right.
and 25% potassium chloride. And the others
Potassium,
continued
right,
to use
right.
100% sodium chloride, so just
Right.
regular salt.
Salt,
And we then
yeah,
followed them
yeah.
for 5 years, and we recorded
They're all about the
strokes,
same
heart
thing.
attacks, and deaths in each of the two groups and compared them.
And you say it's easier because they weren't eating a lot of processed food. So what you see is what you get. It was all added to their cooking and then at the table.
Yeah, so at least half of the dietary sodium, and it's the sodium that's the bad bit in salt, that they consume comes from what's sort of sometimes termed discretionary salt, which is salt added for seasoning, when you're cooking, or when you're preserving foods.
What did you find?
So we found that there was a 14% reduction in the risk of stroke,
Right.
a 13% reduction in the risk of what's termed major adverse cardiovascular events, which is
Right.
effectively strokes and heart attacks combined,
Excellent.
and a 12% reduction in the risk of premature death.
Fantastic.
And all of these had extremely strong p-values, so
Sensational.
0.006 for stroke and less than 0.001 for the other two
That's
outcomes.
Meaning
So
that's
wonderful.
highly statistically significant.
Wonderful.
yeah, absolutely. There's
Absolutely.
no doubt that this was real.
Absolutely.
And we also
Absolutely.
lowered blood pressure by about 3.3 millimeters of systolic,
Wow.
3.3 millimeters of mercury.
So that's not far off what you get with a drug.
Fuck.
It's not that far off what you get with a drug, no, and the effects are
great.
perhaps not that far off what you get with a drug as well.
That's fucking
And years
great.
of life saved if this was throughout their lives. Did you
My-
estimate that?
My word.
Look, we haven't estimated that actually, but that's something that we do need to estimate. We have estimated, or we're able to make some estimates of what this might mean in terms of lives saved and events averted in China. But we haven't looked at that particular metric yet.
Okay.
So when you taste this salt that's got, well, first of all, harms, because potassium can do you harm if you have too
Right.
much potassium in your body.
Yeah, so there's a sort of more theoretical concern about the safety of salt substitutes, and that is exactly that if you eat too much salt substitute, your potassium might go up, and that can make you prone to cardiac arrhythmias and sudden death.
Yeah.
And particularly if you've
Quicker than
got
salt.
chronic kidney disease, quite severe chronic kidney disease, you're prone to that, or if you're using other medicines that raise your potassium.
Right.
So we excluded people by saying if you've got serious kidney disease, you can't be part of the trial,
you're
or
up
if you're
shit
using
creek.
these particular medicines, you can't be part of the trial.
You're also
We saw
up
no
shit creek.
evidence of any increased risk
Right.
of events caused by hyperkalemia,
Well,
and
we'll
we saw
see
no
about
evidence
that.
of any increased risk of sudden death either.
And did you measure their blood levels of potassium?
No, we didn't measure blood levels of potassium because this is a
come
very
on.
large-scale pragmatic study, and very likely we have missed episodes of biochemical hyperkalemia, but what we
Meaning
almost certainly
hypertension.
haven't missed, high potassium in the blood. But I think it's unlikely that we've missed sort of clinical events, so serious clinical consequences of hyperkalemia.
Can you taste the difference between regular salt and this potassium diluted salt?
So the particular combination, the 25-75 mix, we chose in large part because we knew it gave a blood pressure lowering effect, but we also knew it tasted very similar to regular salt. If you put a lot of potassium in, it can get a slightly bitter flavour, particularly when you cook with it. Although you can add small amounts of selected amino acids as sort of flavour enhancers to control that.
Now, let's bring this home. How generalisable is this to us?
Let's fuck it off, Wayne Swan. You fucking gimp. Sunrise here. Put shit on Wayne Swan. Farting. Looking at the sunrise in Bondi. Potassium. That's the answer for all your dietary needs. Potassium is the way forward. But anyway, if you can reduce your salt, you might have less chance of heart attack, stroke, and speaking of which, I'm going to get chocolate bar soon. Salt and chocolate? I don't think so. Just get the dark chocolate, a lot less sugar. Live fucking 80 years old on that. As long as you exercise a lot. That's the main key, I think, for a decent diet. Plenty of fruit, veggies, plenty of exercise. Shut that fuck up.